I finally had to do that, me personally, because when I was feeling overwhelmed and flooded, I finally came to the point when I would just look at it and say, this is what I need, right? And so, and that's kind of how I've approached it with her. Now, I mean, like I said, old me didn't care.
Yeah.
Now it's one of those things that I look at arguments like, what's the point of this argument?
Right.
I don't see you that much already. We're always either traveling to a different facility, or we're always at work, or, I mean, it used to be the mandates, but that's gotten slightly better now. Every time I'm with you, I don't want to argue. So then, like, I have to turn that switch off, that pride, or that I want to win in this discussion. I got to turn it off, and I have to say, this is what I need. I need you to kind of give me 10 minutes.
Right.
Let me go down to the basement, give me 10 minutes, and I'll come up and we'll hang out.
Yeah.
And she does the same thing now,
Yeah.
too. It's taken years to learn.
But, I mean, there may be some issues that you do need to have those tough discussions that certainly look like arguments. So what does Gottman say about, should you argue, how much, what kind of arguments are productive?
Every couple argues.
Yeah.
When you actually don't argue, that's when it's dangerous. Like when people I call it not being
unless
in the
you're in
ring.
that honeymoon period.
Yeah,
like,
everything in the first 2 years is chemicals, right? So they put their laundry next to the basket. It's so cute.
Oh, that way they chomp their food is so attractive.
So yeah, they were skeletons.
They're sharing each other's food.
Yeah.
Get off my food. You ordered that. You gotta suffer.
I hate when my husband says that. I'm like, I want to try yours.
No.
Like, just give me a little taste.
No.
I don't want
honeymoon phase. Yeah, that would have been fine.
I know it used to be fine, but yeah. So basically, just staying in the ring, not like fighting in the ring, but just like showing up. Like, hey, when's a good time that we can actually talk about this tough subject? You know, and then we have handouts that we can give people on how to actually get to the place of dealing with conflicts. There's a whole like 3 pages of stuff that Gottman has given me in all these different trainings.
Wow.
People can do it by themselves, and if they get overwhelmed, they can be like, hey, reach out to a Gottman person.
So I know you mentioned the 4 horsemen. We haven't said what they are, but I'm guessing that, I don't want to say successful, but more productive might be a better language. Fights, if you will, probably avoid certain things and do other things, right? So you talked about criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and
contempt.
Contempt, which is the what?
So it's name calling. It's attacking someone's personality. It's criticism 2.0. You start with criticism. You don't call them an a-hole or whatever. You don't start there. You get to that place eventually. And maybe that's throwing things. That's attacking character. Instead of me saying, hey, why didn't you clean the floors up today? You never clean up. I'm saying you're kind of lazy. Right? I wish that you could show up. You're kind of, you know what I mean? You don't care about anyone.
Yeah.
It's attacking that person as a whole.
It's deeper. Yeah.
It's psychologically very exhausting for the partner to be married to that.
I remember seeing one of the videos on the training where the grad student figured out this is how we're going to code it, and it was just like big eye rolls. They saw that as like a big sign of contempt.
It's a snare. It's like
the.
And there's the face. They do this mouth thing. It's like, like I know better than you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
The smirk, eye roll. There's a lot of body language.
Being all smug about it. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't even need to hear the words. You just you can be completely muted, and we're coding it.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. And it's like cross-culturally, people are doing the same type of 4 horsemen. It's kind of crazy.
Well, that is the cool thing with Gottman, the research. It's not like, hey, this is just what Midwestern people or West Coast. There are LGBT, all kinds of ethnicities, different religions, and there's some kind of like steady variables, if you will.
There is.
Yeah. I know that was one thing that, I mean... Again, you'd have loved talking to old Joe, but that's how I would handle a discussion with my wife back then. Was I would personally attack her because she was the type of person who always was quiet, right? Yeah. And she'd just watch, or what do you call it? The female version of stonewalling.
It's still stonewalling.
Yeah,
I mean, she just looks
deer in headlights.
Yeah, deer in headlights. Yeah.
That was genuinely her. Yeah. And when I saw that, because see, I grew up in a broken home. Yeah. My father wanted nothing to do with me as a kid. And he actually said it. I won't use the word he said, but it was as an 8-year-old reading that. And so for me, my biggest issue with my communication, the older I got, was if you don't talk to me, if you don't engage in this discussion with me, and obviously working at corrections just magnified this for me. if you don't engage or talk to me or respond or tell me what I want to hear or even acknowledge that I'm right or wrong, you don't care. You don't give a shit. You don't care. And so for me, that would escalate me even more.
Right.
And so maybe
then I start attacking
like
her
your wife
character.
is like, in fact, I do care enough. I care so much I want to take a time out so we don't cross lines and
but again,
punch below the belt.
My pride, and again, I only speak for me personally, my pride, I didn't realize that then.
Right.
I looked at it as that she doesn't care. And because she's not making me feel validated because my father never made me feel validated, now I'm going to turn it on her. And that was probably during like our roughest patch in our marriage. Yeah. And we've been almost 15 years now, been married. But that was mid-marriage when I started changing for me. And so because she never validated me or she never talked to me or she never reached out to me and she never responded, now I'm on the attack. So
because you're sort of like trying to provoke a response. Like,
it's like attachment stuff there. You won't really be here. I'm going to push pull, like kind of thing. There's like a dance that happens.
And I never gave her, I would probably say the best way how I would communicate back then was I'm not giving her a chance to respond. I want you to respond to me, but because you're not responding on cue when I want you to respond, now I'm just going to unload and attack. And that was probably my...
You're kind of giving her impossible test. We used to talk about that a lot, right? So, you know, like... I think it was Groucho Marx that said, boy, I'd never be a member of a club that would have me as a member, right? Like, I need you to like me, but if you like me, you must be stupid because I'm broken. And so it's like this weird kind of, I'm giving you tests that there's no right answer.
And I don't know, like, I know when this started is when I started working in corrections, honestly. Like, that switch just, I went from extrovert to being the life of the party, like you said your husband was, to just being... mean.
Yeah.
Right? Because
but that meanness that might have saved your life in corrections. Like, it might have kind of helped in a way. Like, for you to keep it together.
I look at it now that, I mean, she's been through with me through everything I've ever done.
Yeah.
You know, and that was for me personally realizing now I can look back and say, we grew. Like that, she got thick skin, and I will never question that at all.
That's awesome.
And you know, we all have our people in our life that are our rocks, right? That mean more to us, and she is that rock that is my foundation. But yeah, it was. I don't know how she put up with me, but I love you.
Aww,
I appreciate
she
that.
Well,
I hope she doesn't. I hope she doesn't.
Better.
No, but you know, I think that's what makes great for staff wellness, Joe. Yeah. I mean, I don't want old Joe on staff wellness.
No,
old Joe would have been the guy. Hey, let's go talk to old Joe. I know there's a good Joe in there.
Yeah.
But the fact that, because we all have adversity, you really handled it well. And then now you're willing to share a lot of really deep stuff, like on our podcast. And when we go out and speak to others, we do debriefings.
Yeah.
But like that kind of authenticity, I think, and I hope, invites other people to kind of help make those changes for the better in corrections.
And it was acknowledgement.
So
and that was
their families are happier, their careers are better.
Acknowledging those faults.
Right.
And acknowledging that's how I communicated.
Right. That pride piece you keep bringing up. And I think it's a struggle.
Me, it was such a struggle.
And I honestly, I used to just for fun ask my officer coworkers, hey, what would make you go to counseling? Just in general. And guess what they would tell me?
Oh, boy.
Well, they would say, with couples counseling, what would make them
a judge order? I don't know.
So when she says she's ready to file for divorce, they'd go.
Really?
That's the line.
Might be a bit late.
So when people are listening to this, I'm thinking, all right, where do we meet them? Because that's kind of the common theme that I've seen.
When our spouses are at the end of the rope.
Right. And couples, normal couple, non-correction couples, they wait 6 years, Gottman found, on average, to go to couples counseling. So what is corrections? What is the number? Is there a number? Maybe it's just divorce. Like, that's the line.
Good question. And I know, we tend to seek out support from others that know the culture because there's a lot of words you don't have to speak with people who understand it. Right. So then, Gottman talked about parallel lives. I think, and again, I don't know, there's been studies on this. My hypothesis would be that, there's maybe a little bit more of a pull towards a parallel life in certain kind of cultural employment settings, right? Military, police, to where there's sort of a code. Everybody sort of knows things. And to be able to share and kind of turn towards your spouse at home, can be kind of difficult, but somebody that's already there and you don't have to say the words and you're sort of already at chapter 2 in the book.
Right. Yeah, completely. I mean, having the ability to, I mean, even just like the idea, people think when they go to counseling, they lose their FOID card. Like that's a whole talk in itself.
Yes.
Right?
When we did like a lot of staff wellness days and stuff,
Yeah.
we had to bring some of the, whatever that department was in state police up to kind of, here's the law, here's what it says, here's how you would get it back if you do cross that line. And at the practice I work at, I don't do those. That's a lot of like liability, but some of the guys I work with do that too.
Right.
But there's a lot that's not known.
Right.
And so it prevents somebody.
Yep.
It's like, well, I don't want to go seek help if I'm suicidal. Well, because, if I live, this will happen. But if you die.
Right. And that's why this couple stuff matters so much to me. And honestly, like we all have our brokenness sees brokenness, I think. Yeah. And for us at my last facility I was in, when we lost 2 of my great friends to suicide, the people that I saw every day, and they knew where I lived, they knew what I did. Like, hey, why didn't they just drive by and be like, hey, I'm really struggling, right? And it's really sent me on this quest of like, where do we fix the brokenness? Like, where do we fix this? The pride, where does it all kick in?
Yeah.
And I always apply that Joyner theory of suicide that we teach in our classes and like the mental health stuff and the cycle. And like the idea, if I can make someone feel alone and feel like they're a burden, and they already have access to the thing, right? That's the 3 that equals suicide, they find. And I ask guys, like I have a farmer I'm working with, and I said, hey, he's suicidal. And for example, I'm like, if we took your gun away, would that keep you safe? He's like, no, I just drive off a bridge. I'm like, how do we rethink what safety planning looks like for first responders? Because it's not working.
I like to think, it's just an idea I've thrown out. We think of it like the old adage, this is back before cell phones. So I think we all grew up before cell phones, right? Remember like when you finally became old enough that your parents could go into town or whatever, maybe not leave you overnight, but leave you for a while.
Going to the grocery store, see you tomorrow morning.
Going out for a pack of cigarettes and never came back, the old
I was
joke.
on my web TV, I'll tell you. That's my
But, there was always like that magnet or like a sticky note on the side of the fridge or by that old telephone with like the 50-foot twirly cord. That had grandma's number, aunt's number, neighbor's number, 911. Like you prepared ahead of time for emergencies. I don't think we do that. I think some police departments do some things. What I would like to see is a check-in before you check out kind of model to where there's a relationship established with a professional prior to any issues or conflict, and not that you're there to try to dig and pull for stuff, but like let's say if twice a year you had to have 2 30-minute sessions, could be for anything. Okay, well I know Counselor Wright or social worker Wright, and we've got a good report. Oh boy, I'm going through divorce. We had some money issues. I have some kind of predisposition towards depression, and I'm starting to think things I don't normally think. I've thought about suicide. I've thought about what would happen if I don't. I haven't had a well-laid plan. I'm going to go talk to this person.
Right.
But if you're trying to navigate that system you've never even been on the road of, in the midst of a crisis, it's kind of like flooded. You're flooded.
Completely.
You got a 70 IQ. Not the time to be figuring out your insurance and how do you pay for this and where do you go and who's going to watch your kids when you go to this appointment. What happens if they put me inpatient? All this stuff.
And how do you tell your spouse you're struggling if we're already not talking about it, right? I mean, what do you do, right?
Well, a lot of people say you suppress it. That's, men, we don't talk about it. We suppress
Swallow
it.
it. Shove it
we
down.
die at 55. Like
Lord help me.
That's what it is.
It goes somewhere, though.
It does.
Right?
It does.
Where does it go? I don't know.
I had this.
I have headaches every day, right? Like, it's not good.
Go ahead, Joe, then I got one after you.
You said it when it comes to your personal journey of trying to find, what makes us broken. And that's one thing I tell staff, and we've talked, Luke and I, we've talked about it. I tell people all the time, and this is something that I had to tell myself, I'm not broken. Not broken. We're thinking and saying that we're broken, that's when you lose. Right? For me personally, I'm bent.
Ooh, I like
but
that.
I'm not broken.
Is this a Matchbox 20 reference?
This is not Matchbox 20.
I used to have that CD.
And so for me, I'm not. So I tell people, you're not broken. You're just bent.
You have character.
Yeah,
right?
I like that.
And at the same time, acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Getting past. You asked why we as men might suppress it. Again, past the pride. Right.
Yeah.
But we suppress it because most definitely in corrections, it's you're weak if you talk about that you need help. And then you're even weaker if you let your spouse know that you need help. And then you're even weaker on top of that if your kids see you struggling.
Right.
And so for me, over the years of this job, and when my wife found my suicide note, for me, realizing I'm not broken, I'm just bent. And then realizing the best way for me to overcome my issues, my depression, and my lack of communication, and my anxieties is being honest with people around me, but then also taking that a step further by talking with my kids about it.
That's good.
And so we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
We have a safe word that her and my daughters use, me and my daughters use whenever one of us needs to talk or check on. Eleanor, it's wait, hold on. Anna, it's Stardust.
I remembered Stardust, yeah.
Eleanor now is llamas because she loves llamas.
Llama, red
Wow.
pajama.
Just llamas.
So just if they need to talk about anything,
Yeah.
or
So if she comes up to me, Eleanor, lately she's been using it a lot lately. She'll go, "Hey, Dad, llamas." And so now,
I love that. I'm gonna
okay,
take
I'll be
that.
like, okay, what do you need to talk about? And she'll tell me about her day at school and how her long walk with her sister home was just too much for her because she was flooded. Right?
She's
And so-
emotionally intelligent.
And
I
so
like that.
Anna as well does the same exact thing. For
Yeah.
her, it's our
Well,
Star Wars.
because
Amazing.
your different strategy now is creating emotionally intelligent kids
yes,
that
because,
can handle
You're
these
breaking
problems
curses.
without having
Yeah.
Because
to.
for me, and
Yeah.
it wasn't my mom's fault. My mom did everything she could for us. You know, she raised us as a single parent. She did a beautiful job with 4 kids. You know, for me, it was one of those internal struggles.
Yeah.
And so something that a parent like my mom, I mean, she didn't know because I never said anything about it. And so for me, my biggest fear as a father and with my personal struggles is not knowing if my daughters have an issue because they feel like they can't talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why we've created those words.
And how do you talk to them before they go through the struggle? Like, how do we give them the keys as a parent? Because we've worked through our own stuff and know, like, hey, at this age, this is probably going to happen, right? Which I know it shifts now. Things happen younger or whatever. But even, like, for our 8-year-old, like, bullying is a thing in our town, right? She's like, she told me the other day she didn't think she was pretty. And I was like, you are so beautiful. What are you talking about, right? But it's like someone's telling her these messages. And I know they're everywhere, whatever, but it does break my heart.
Yeah.
But there's different songs. This Victoria's Secret song we talked about, like, have you guys heard this
Yes.
song? She loves this song. And I'm like, I don't know about our kid knowing this song,
Some
but it's
dude
like
in Ohio from
this
freaking
idea
Alicia.
that women are supposed to look a certain way.
I
And
don't
she
know
knew
this
it
song.
at 7.
It's a pop song. I don't
It's a
remember.
good song. It has
We're
a
gonna
lot of
find
cool
it on the way
meanings.
home today, and we're gonna
It's a
listen
good
to
one. I mean, it sounds weird to say
But no,
that.
that image does start. Our daughter's almost 5, and
Yeah.
you know, just some of the things,
Yeah.
and some of it's normal. And I think I struggle with, okay, well, I need to let my children have the tools to deal with this stuff, not always prevent it. And
Yeah.
so it's a balance of like some
Yeah.
things you just need to prevent
Right.
because they're too big.
Right.
And then, not be a helicopter parent, but other things like, yeah, it's okay to have a bad day. You're supposed to have
It
bad
is.
days.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be mad at your best friend
Yeah.
sometimes.
Right.
You're supposed to get angry at dad because you didn't get what you
Right.
want.
Right.
You're supposed to, right? This idea that we're supposed to be happy all the time and pain-free
No.
is foolish.
Right. And our daughter, she's better than some adults on how to manage anger. She can say before she becomes angry that she's about to get on the anger bridge. She's like, I see the anger bridge. I'm going to decide if I'm going to get on it or not. And I think it's kind of amazing to like break those curses in our families,
We get a lot of slam doors still.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a lot of anger. We're working on that with our
My
kiddos.
oldest is getting that 9-year-old attitude right before junior high.
Oh, it's a rough age.
Yeah, it's been scary at the Balancing's house right now.
Yeah. Well, Joe, sounds like you're doing a lot of great things with the kids. And again, like, we can only do a little bit better than our parents did. This like lofty goal, we're going to do everything perfect. You
Right.
pick a couple things, do it better, move
Yeah.
on. Humans are very adaptive. I think that's the thing we should take away too, that we're not broken or bent. We adapt to our environment. And so you adapted, and that adaptation was successful at the time. Now you need to make a new adaptation.
Yep.
So what else does Gottman tell us about couples, fights, and even if we go outside of Gottman, in the next few minutes as we kind of wrap up this portion of the podcast, what else about, because relationships are such a struggle for our people in corrections. Divorce rates are high.
They are.
Infidelity, substance,
Right.
there's a number of topics, but
Right.
if we kind of think of relationships from all the expertise you have inside and outside of corrections.
So something that helps us is stress-reducing conversation. It's what Gottman, you're kind of maybe talking about it a little bit when you're talking about trying to figure out how to have a conversation with your wife, right? So literally on our date night, of course, you got to have a date night. actually planning that. That's really hard for us helpers. We don't know when, whatever. So ours is every Friday night. It's not perfect, but we try to make it work every Friday. And then on the drive, you can do the Gottman Card Deck app. It's a free app, and you can actually ask questions. So the husband knows when we talk emotions, because women need emotions first, right?
I'm gonna make a note of this.
Gottman Card Deck
put this
app.
in my
It's
phone.
free. It's amazing. So you start by asking like love map questions, which are friendship questions. Because if you're married for a while, like we've been married 10 years. So after a while, you stop asking, hey, how's it going at work? You might ask, but you're like, here he goes again, tell me the same story. It's the same person who's annoying you at work, whatever. But they give us questions and prompts, and there's all different areas to ask. So we either do the card deck app, or you can literally Google stress reducing conversation, and one person's the listener and one person's, and they're writing it down if they can't listen. My husband, I make him write it down sometimes because he's like,
so you're the one driving on date night then?
Well, he's usually driving, but I might write it down, and then later on you might flip, But I'm literally just saying something that stresses me out outside of the relationship.
Okay.
Like I'm stressed about.
So it shouldn't put him on the defense because it's not about him. It's not something he should have control over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that gives, especially the feeling person, that emotional connection they're longing for. You don't have to talk about corrections. Like, hey, I'm stressed out right now because whatever. For us, we have a new building. I'm stressed out about it. Like, it's a lot of pieces. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
And then he has to say, I hear you say, yada, yada, yada. Which he doesn't know how to do that. And I love that he doesn't, because we can't have two people like me in the same room for too long. We get start analyzing, right? So
I would never want to be married to a therapist.
I know, right?
Like,
I'm like, well, how do you feel about that? Well, how do you feel? Like, it's crazy, right? Get a laugh, but it's true. But he's like, tell me what to say. Like, it's fine. He doesn't do the
I got to hear his voice, too.
I know. I don't know his voices. I'm sorry.
A robot?
I am a robot. Yeah, I don't know. But we do that, and then by the end, he actually, the hardest part is he is not allowed to give any feedback.
Oh.
He does, because women, we don't want feedback. We're just venting.
Yeah, I know this. I know Joe knows this. I know every man who's in a relationship with a woman, and I don't want to be heteronormative, but for the sake of being heteronormative, we all know, right, that like they want the validation, they want the discussion, they want the support. My mind still goes to, why don't you just go talk to her? Why don't you just do this? Have you thought about, like, we can make this a 20-second conversation. I don't need to be here 4 hours. But to your point, like, that's what's going to make that other person feel better, especially if they're emotionally driven by feeling heard and supported. But it's tough. Right. I don't know how you do, Joe, but it's tough for me.
I kind of touched on it earlier. For me, it's very much, do you want a solution out of this discussion, or do you just want to vent?
That's great to say.
And it's hard because sometimes, even when she says, I just want to vent, I'm like, oh, God.
You got to take a deep breath and
say, here we go.
Yeah. My husband says I need to say that first, but I forget. Because I'm like, I always want to vent.
Yeah.
I always do. Girls don't, hey, best friend, tell me what I should do. I'll tell her, hey, I need you to tell me what to do, to my best friend. Yeah. It's my guy. I just want to, like, process, yada, yada, talk. Right. It's fine. Yeah. And it's the same thing. For him, I do that. And it's like, the reason that it's so important is because when affairs happen, they do that with other people. They're getting that validation that, oh, you're so great. Well, I don't know why your husband would say that about you. They're not with you all the time. They don't get to see you when you're sick or whatever, right? Yeah. They get to see this perfect ideal image, the first 2-year image, the dopamine hit thing. Is that fair? Like, why not invest that in your person?
Yeah.
You spend a lot on your wedding. Why not invest in your person, So... There's my spiel. Stress reducing conversation, super easy. It takes like 5 minutes.
Any other kinds of apps or like activities, outside of obviously going to a good couples therapist and being proactive about it? I know my wife and I made an agreement before we got married, come from 2 divorced families, that we're going to be very proactive about this. Right. We're not going to wait until we're at each other's throats and somebody's sleeping on the couch and we're ready to move out. And so we've tried to be proactive, and we've done some couples counseling from time to time when other sort of external, and it's been really great. Like, and it's not like we were having fights or anybody would know anything was wrong. Like the relationship was pretty good, but it actually did help give us some new tools and some insight. Wasn't terribly costly. Yeah. Right.
I mean, it just kind of depends on what people are struggling with, just knowing that we all have perpetual issues, just in general, whatever they are. So just normalizing that and figuring out a way to have some like conversations stay between you guys. Like a lot of couples, especially in corrections, we bond with people at work, right? We bond through crazy usually. So just recognizing that and figuring out who is in your corner that are supporting your relationship. Like, hey, Jessica, I heard you venting and complaining about your husband today. Do you want to go talk to your, like, what's the plan with you going to talk to your husband about it? Because otherwise we're doing what's called walls to windows, where Gottman finds that couples in the beginning, they're looking out the same window together when they first get together. And then over time, chaos, stress, whatever, kids get in the way. And we start building this wall between our partner and we build a window with someone else, typically.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right? I hear this work wife, these jokes that we use, right? But it's this idea of like, we need to start going back to our partner. Vent to your partner more than you do your best friend.
And I hear so many, I mean, we do rounding, you know, we're debriefing, all of these services we provide on the staff wellness team. And we do have a lot of people that sound like they have some really healthy habits. So kudos to all of our folks out there really trying hard. But there's still, you know, every time we go somewhere, you at least hear one or two that you're like, okay, let's check back in. I don't like what you're telling me. You have the right to do that. But, you know, and I used to tell people in PSOT, like, you know, divorce rates are high, but they're not impossible.
Right.
You know, like you've got to share that culture. And do you need to come home and tell your husband or wife everything? No.
Right.
You know, they don't need to know what this form is or that form is, but they can just say, yeah, we had a really difficult, you know, person in custody today. And, you know, I got mandated to this post. And I just felt overwhelmed. You know, you don't have to share everything.
Yeah.
You know, I said, I had to do a podcast with Joe. And his beard was so glorious. It just made mine. And I felt so insecure.
Thank you.
Yes,
I put my hat on, for the record, I put my hat on today because I didn't want to trump your hair. And I knew, like, my hairline's not as good as your hairline, so that's why I put the hat on.
Mine's not getting any better, but thank you, buddy.
We won't analyze
Thank you,
that
buddy.
at all.
Thank you, buddy.
It's fine.
He makes fun of my beard all the time. I gotta poke at that hair.
I don't make fun of it. That's not making fun of it. It's a really good beard.
If people don't make fun of you and have the banter around here, then they don't like you.
That's how we show compassion.
That's a thing. I've learned that.
I guess
that was my family too.
It's
so
fine.
I guess
That's
I love
ours.
you, Luke.
if I'm saying mean things to you, I probably like you because if I don't like you, I'm just not going to talk to you.
Yeah, or they don't make eye contact if they don't like you.
Your
around
shirt's
you.
on
Realize
point
that.
today, Luke.
Hey, you know what shirt I have on underneath it here?
Uh-oh.
The four shift.
podcast shirt.
Mind, body,
Where's
man.
yours?
I don't have it.
Oh, man.
It's hot outside. I got
Yeah.
It's hot.
I didn't know it was kind of cool this morning. I didn't know what the AC
Yeah.
situation. You never know in corrections, like the heat of the day.
I always ask Alexa every morning. What's the weather going to be like?
I did actually today, and it
I
was
do
high
too.
of 78. So that's like right in the,
nice.
that's the edge.
Yeah.
Still wore that.
That's good.
I do love this weather. But let's wrap up here. So we've talked about 4 horsemen. Mm-hmm. I'm going to see if I can remember them. Contempt, criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
So when you see a lot of those more frequently without strategies, those are really big risk factors, right?
Yeah. They're more likely to get divorced. Contempt is the highest predictor of divorce.
Okay.
Attacking personality and character.
And then I think he mentioned like a lot of people think that like infidelity and affairs cause divorces. Certainly they're not great.
Right.
But it's that parallel life that probably happened before where you're sitting at breakfast, not even talking to each other.
Yeah.
Not sharing in anything.
Right. And the issue with, so this is a little tricky, but when affairs happen, it actually, the partner that has had the affair happen on them, how do I say that? But they're ones...
The victim of it, maybe?
Yeah, there you go. They found have PTSD because of that. So they're going to ask a lot of questions. So there's it's really tricky on how to do counseling. So I recommend having a certified Gottman counselor or a person who's working on certification because they've done the affairs course. It's really important because they need to know that the third partner now is PTSD. Just probably with corrections, there's probably PTSD too. So there's a lot of PTSD and then the people. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Interesting.
It's really cool advanced stuff that we do. And I was going to say the reason why this all matters, right? I was kind of going there. So if relationships are broken and they're like people not broken, bent so much that like the person's like, I'm out, right? If you take that Joyner theory of suicide. So when people feel alone and like a burden, when is the time that those people are going to feel that if you're working in corrections? What time in their life? What are they going through at home? Do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I know from our data, a lot of our folks, marital problems, divorces, money problems, shift changes, all these things that tend to isolate them. Yeah. And to where, and you kind of get drunk with it, I would say. It's kind of intoxicating in a bad way, depression or anything, to where couple bad things happen, and objectively they're bad, sure, but you sort of can only then see bad things.
Right.
Feel bad ways, think bad thoughts.
Right.
And so it's really hard to pull yourself out.
Yes.
And then, of course, the third joiner thing is the desensitization of violence. Well, by God, you work in a correctional institution with people who have committed murder. You see suicide attempts. You see staff assaults. Minimally, you hear threatening words at some point. So that one's always there.
Yeah. So I ask him in cycle, I say, what would make you feel, they say the same thing, if I didn't have access to my kids on holidays, right? These rituals that we do, right? How depressing would that be, right? Yeah. And then are you going to call your bro and be like, hey, I'm really struggling at 3 a.m? Like, would you guys do that? I would call my girlfriend. I would call her crying. I'm really struggling, because we can do that. We're like that.
Yeah, I tell people, because I have to answer my phone all the time for corrections anyway. You call me. I don't know if I'd call somebody else. I would pick up the phone, and I would be a good ear. I'd go to the other room, and I'd listen to somebody, but I still don't know if I'd call.
Elders have the hardest time.
How bad is that?
Help. It's true, though.
My phone both my phones go off all the time, like yours, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd call somebody at 3 a.m.
Right.
How do you get a guy like me to, not that I need to be calling somebody at 3 a.m. Hopefully I have skills I can call them before they go to bed. But how do you encourage somebody who has a decent knowledge of this field to still cross that threshold?
I think just for me, knowing you're going to feel alone and you're going to feel like a burden, so we need to do it anyways. We need to call the people anyways. So maybe your cousin, yes, he has a family at home, whatever, but you got to call him anyways. And it's really hard, because that's the pride piece.
I was up at 3 a.m. I thought I'd call and check in with him.
Yeah.
By the way, this is what I'm going.
Yeah. 3 a.m., you must be lonely. Let's get another Matchbox 20.
Oh, there it is, boy!
We've got Bent.
A lot of us, we're really awkward when it comes to people like going through stuff. We're like, hey, let me know if you need something. Because we want to be there, but what do we do? Like, when I lost 2 at the last facility, I didn't know how people could help me. But they would just show up. PSP people, they'd be like, what's going on? How are you? And I'd be like, I'm fine. Please stop asking me questions.
Yeah, people, I guess, don't really know what help they need. I've made it a point that when I tell people, like, I try not to just say it in passing. I'm like, no, I'm telling you this. I don't blow smoke up somebody's butt. I would not offer to help if I did not intend to offer. Right. And did not see it as a burden if you call me and ask me for something.
Right. Yeah.
But you're right. I think of times in my life, in my family's life, sometimes people just kind of had to force their way in there.
They do.
And maybe it wasn't exactly what I needed, but it's just like, had to get me out of my own way.
Knock on your door and be annoying and be like, hey.
Listen, idiot, I'm coming in.
It's okay. Yeah.
I needed that. That's what I needed. And that's what was a huge change for me when Amanda finally said, I'm coming in your door.
Good.
And I'm not even going to talk to you about it. Like we're going to come in. We're going to bring it out. All the skeletons, all your emotion.
Yep.
We're going to talk about it. I needed that.
That's exactly what I was going to ask, how you shifted. So there it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there was 5% of me was angry.
Yeah.
Like, I was frustrated she found it. I was frustrated she got my family involved. I was frustrated and mad.
Yeah. That
now I got to talk about it with everyone who thought I was okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the other 95% was like, okay.
She really does love me. It's not this, she probably likes me. Like, you knew for certain, right? Because of early relationship patterns, attachment stuff.
That's one thing she said.
You always doubted to some degree, but that doubt probably was
That's one thing
diminished.
She said as well was, I remember what you were like in high school. And that was one of one of the main reasons why I've stayed with you for so long. So I remember that Joe who I fell in love with, and then what you turned into. And I mean, now, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but
it just happened.
The 180 when it comes to how I communicate and how I respond in arguments. I mean, we have the times when we come out of pocket regardless of the other person.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's normal.
But
not every boxer lands every punch. Like, not every baseball player hits everything that comes across the plate.
Yeah.
It's just doing better moving forward.
Just showing up,
Yeah.
And I mean, a big thing I asked my husband is like, how much do you have in your cup today, to have that conversation? And that helps, because energy wise, I don't really have that very much, to be honest. I haven't worked out today or whatever the thing is. And I know what replenishes me. Honestly, I go floating a lot. People make fun of me, but the float nearby. You guys floated before? It'll change your life.
It's kind of sensory deprivation kind of float.
It literally heals PTSD. It is so crazy amazing.
Like the salt thingy.
It's quiet. You don't talk to anyone for an hour, which people are like,
It really recalibrates that limbic system, right?
Yeah.
That's always interpreting every little thing that's benign as like dangerous, fearful, stressful.
Yeah.
No stimuli is coming in, so there's nothing to interpret.
Right. It's all about like this. I'm on this burnout path of like, how do I help people with burnout, and how do I help my own? So because literally I've been asked, I love asking people for their feedback around me at work, and I ask like top down, who's burnt out? They're all burnt out. We're all burnt out. Yeah. It's in the energy field.
It's just how much.
Yeah. But like, what do we do for burnout? Right. And I had to start doing things that I didn't post on social about. So I don't even know if I want people to know I knit blankets. It's a thing. These huge blankets, I'm not selling them. It's not a thing. I'm not allowed to sell them. I'm not allowed to hustle them. That's what we say in prison talk, Yeah. I can't. But that's literally processing left, right brain, kind of mimicking some trauma work. EMDR, which we won't even have to go there, but a whole nother talk. But yeah, so and just having things that you can do that are the opposite of what you would usually do to turn your brain off.
Well, it's interesting, like, and we'll wrap up here because we're getting close to an hour, but like the hobbies, having something that you can actually have a tangible, completed project, because corrections are so difficult.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like you're literally kind of putting out fires and running from one task to the other.
Yes.
And you have, 80 units of work and you only have 40 units of resource, but somehow you manage to get 60 units of work, but boy, those 20 didn't get done. And every day it's like hustling. It's it's like playing baseball with like 7 in the field versus 9. Like, okay, you're going to cover this, you're going to cover that.
Just make it work.
Yeah. So you mentioned, having those hobbies, obviously the date night, de-stressing conversations.
Stress reducing.
Similar
idea. Yeah.
Card game.
Conversations.
Gottman card deck app.
Card deck app. You also mentioned like exercise.
Any kind of self-care.
Research is phenomenal on exercise. It does more than antidepressants, by the way.
Yes. The stress cycle. There's a book on burnout prevention. If you guys want information, I'm reading it currently. It's phenomenal about how we have to have a way to finish that stress cycle. And exercise is the fastest way. It's fascinating.
And that's kind of where somatic experiencing taps into
we got to talk more on that. Yeah.
So lots of good ideas, and hopefully, even if we've made one person think about their relationship a little bit differently, or just be interested more to go do anything proactive to help the relationship, then I think we've done what we came to do. Again, you guys know our email address, and Joe will put it up across the screen. Right there, so if you got questions or you want to hear more about those books, we can connect you to Jess, and we can get something going.
Yeah, absolutely. What time is it, Luke?
12:27.
All right. It's the end of our shift, right?
Well, what are we doing? Half shift overtime? Yeah, it's the end of the fourth shift.
Yeah.
So